Every day has a pond. Every day has a swamp. Every day has a pond. And what we come to understand if we honor both, which is really what happiness in dark times is about, is honoring both the swamp and the pond. What we come to realize is that we can choose what we're focused on. And the happiest of us, the most resilient, those of us with the highest life satisfaction scores are those who recognize the swamp, manage it, work with it, do what we can to help or heal or cure it, but we focus on the pond. We focus on that which is good within us and around us. And what do we focus on specifically? So this is the swamp, also known as hell. And this is the pond. And we focus on positive states, such as what happens to us when we're engaged in novel activities or meeting new friends or even going a new way to work. There's an uplift for many of us in experiencing the novel. We focus on passion, what enlivens us and engages, and it puts us in states of flow. We focus on generosity, the acts of being generous and the receiving of generosity and kindness from others. We focus on creativity, that which is innovative within us, that which inspires us to be makers in our own life, to make something anew, right? Wonder, that which takes our breath away, meaning, and love in all of its forms. In 2011, I lost my younger brother to stage 4 pancreatic cancer. He was diagnosed in December and passed 10 weeks later. He was 48, I was 50. I was his big sister. He was my baby brother. And in that short 10-week journey, through all of my training, before positive psychology emerged, I was a clinical psychologist, and my specialty was death and dying. I worked with children facing cancers and other blood diseases. So the territory of dying was very familiar to me clinically as well as personally. And along the road came this gorgeous subspecialty in psychology called positive psychology. And as those two intersections of the territory of dying well and positive psychology came together, I began to understand that there is one potent question that we can ask in the worst moments, which is, who am I at my best when the worst things happen? When you consciously choose to practice those things that lift you, like generosity and kindness and love and connection, or your character strengths, or choose best moment of the day, or noticing, savoring the good that you've brought forward. Any of these practices, mindfulness, for example, any of the positive psychology-oriented practices, you are building within you a grounded hope. Not hope that everything's going to be perfect, but the hope that you will find your way through, whatever the through is, in such a way that you are bringing your better selves to the task. And does that make sense? I'll say that again. The hope that you will find your way through, in other words, well, or well enough, by bringing your better self alive. And truly, this is the hope that we're looking for when life strikes incredibly hard. When Jeanette Mare, she's a mom from a state in the United States, Arizona, had a little baby boy. He was growing normally, naturally, 3 years old. He developed a coughing disease called croup. Is that a familiar term here? But croup, most kids do fine with croup. It's nothing we terribly worry about. But there are children who, for some reason, cannot clear their lungs when they are diagnosed with croup. And he died in the middle of the night, one night. And Jeanette fell apart, of course, and shattered. Her life shattered, her sense of purpose in life shattered, and her capacity disappeared. And then one day, she was driving to an appointment that she had to go to, and she got out of her car and dropped her keys. And as she bent down to pick up her keys, a stranger had come by and bent down to pick up the keys also. And he got there first and handed her her keys. And that very simple moment of kindness was absolutely life-changing for her, because she noticed later on that night when she was talking to her husband, in that moment of receiving kindness, she felt, just for a millisecond, she felt like herself again. And so she began to notice other moments of kindness and the impact they had on her, so much so that she went on to decide that in order to live through a life that held the loss of her son, Ben, and this new normal she was trying to find her way into, she was going to focus on kindness. And so she eventually developed an organization called Ben's Bells, in which you can go to her community and sit around a table and help make beautiful bells that have messages of kindness on them. And you can't buy a bell. You gift them to you, you take them in the middle of the night and hang them around a town. So when the town wakes up the next morning, or the school wakes up the next morning, there are the beautiful bells with messages of kindness all over them. By choosing to focus on these brief glances of kindness, she built within her a sense of hope that she would find a way through this in such a way that she was bringing her better self alive.
So much food for thought there, and very inspiring. I guess the first thing that came up for me, often one of the critiques of positive psychology is this idea that we're just sort of trying to encourage positive emotions and perhaps aren't leaving space for some of the negative emotions. I think what you shared at the end there about these juxtapositions between broken and whole and so on is a lovely response to that. But obviously, you talked about a horrific loss in your life of a loved one. There's something about the healing process of grieving and experiencing negative emotions that almost feels like you're not able to experience that hope until you've at least come to terms with the sadness or the loss. What's your take on that, having been obviously a psychologist for many years and then looked through this positive psychology lens?
So there is no integration if you don't first allow yourself to feel the darkness, right? The first thing we have to do is allow ourselves to grieve or be angry or feel betrayed because we've been betrayed, right? That's reality. True hope, that model of true hope that I just briefly referenced from Jerome Groopman, who's a medical oncologist in Boston, has three components to it. The first is you have to face reality as it is. You have to feel what you feel, think what you think, believe what you believe. But no resilience grows out of allowing yourself to just stay there. The resilience grows in the and. So you feel what you feel, think what you think, believe what you believe, behave badly as we sometimes do, and then the other circle is we consciously move toward a slightly better future. So there are three important things in that. We move, meaning we take conscious action, toward a slightly, meaning we don't ask ourselves to suddenly feel better 24/7. It's small increases in moving toward positivity. And a better future is defined by us. How I navigated the loss of my brother would look very different than perhaps how you might navigate the loss of a sibling, right? The parents I worked with in Boston at Dana-Farber who were losing children, every family had its own way of finding their way into this. Jeanette Mare founded an organization called Ben's Bells, which is now a national organization. There is no way on God's green earth it would never occur to me I'm a nice person, but that's a lot of freaking work. It's not where, you know what I mean? It's not who I am. But can I dive deeply into the poets, which is where a passion of mine lives, and bring that forward in service of myself and those I love? That I can do. Right? So it's really about feeling and honoring what we feel and think and who we are imperfectly as we navigate these storms, and then moving toward our own sense of a slightly better future.
It's the and, not the either or.
The BBC had an article on a whiteboard that someone had put in her elderly mom's room. Her mom was in a home for dementia or Alzheimer's. And the reporter just posted this, and then there was a story about dementia. And the post went viral, crazy viral around the world. You're okay. Everyone's fine. You're not moving. No one else is moving. Keep drinking. It will help your memory. And it reminded me of a beautiful story that I wanted to leave you with. In 2001, when we experienced 9/11 in the United States, that day, air travel to the United States was completely blocked. And so planes that were en route to the United States had to go somewhere else. And 36 of them were sent to Gandor, which is a small town in Newfoundland of 5,000 people. Now, Gandor is an unusual town because back in the 1950s, when air travel, there wasn't enough fuel capacity in airplanes to cross the Atlantic without refueling. Everybody used to go to Gandor, refuel, and then come across the pond. And so Gandor, this tiny town, has a giant airport. So air traffic controllers diverted 36 planes from around the world to Gandor, carrying over 7,000 passengers, so more than the size of the entire town. They had no idea how long they would be there. There were something like 20 different languages that were spoken. 5 dogs, 2 cats, and 2 rare bonobo monkeys were on those planes.
Wow.
Yeah. There were people of every religion on those planes. And the town had to mobilize immediately and feed these people and keep them safe until the airspace opened up again. And so for 5 days and 5 nights, 5,000 people in the town of Gandor fed 7,000 strangers and clothed them. And they took care of the monkeys, one of whom was pregnant, and the cats and the dogs. And on the second day, the mayor of Gandor brought everyone, I think it was to the giant ice rink, because that could fit most of them, and made them all official Newfoundlanders, which means you have to drink this disgusting beer drink, and you have to kiss a cod, a fish. And then you have to sing a Newfie song. Well, the story has become a Broadway play. It's called Come From Away. And one of the refrains of the opening song is, "We have a candle in the window, and the candle is always lit." And this kind of thing is that. It's lighting a candle in the window for a loved one with dementia, which is one of the great sufferings of men and women of our generation, is that we have elders we love whose memories are fading. And these positive psychology, these micro practices are that as well. They are candles in our window, lighting that which is good within us, reminding us of the light that is always possible, enabling us to gather our stones and send off those 3 good throws. So I wanted to thank BBC for this story. I wanted to thank you, each of you, for everything you have done and are doing to hold your own candle, your flame alive. Because you never know when you're going to need to feed a couple of bonobo monkeys and strangers. And life, as harsh as it is, these horrible, surprising, terrible things that happen, it is also surprisingly, miraculously wondrous in bringing us the chance to be our better selves. Thank you so much for your time and your attention tonight.